All right, this is the Outdoor Report podcast, and this is cameraman Wes. Last weekend, the man, the myth, the legend, Erik Osberg, the founder of the Outdoor Report, swung by my house, and I didn't tell him, but I started recording, and we made an impromptu podcast. So this podcast is about Erik Osberg. This podcast is about the Outdoor Report. We talk about getting kids in the outdoors and a few other things too. Erik, he's a good friend, a heck of a business partner, and probably one of the best damn storytellers around. So I told Erik, I need to stop trying to host this thing and you need to take over. So hopefully that's our game plan. I think I got it going, and Erik needs to be the guy I think that needs to run this. So you'll enjoy. Again, Erik's awesome storyteller. He's fun to listen to. He's got a great outlook on life and many other things. So I think you'll enjoy this. But first, I do need to say thank you to Joshua Lynn from Artistic Taxidermy. He's helping support this podcast, and we very much appreciate it, Josh. Here's a quick tip from Josh.
Hey everyone, it's Joshua Lynn at Artistic Taxidermy with another tip of the week. Every catch is a memory, and every memory has a story. You can't get every fish mounted that you catch, but you can take a picture. So when you are out fishing or even just enjoying the outdoors with your kids, make sure you are taking those pictures. Get some with siblings, grandparents, and especially with their mom. One day, those will be the gateway to the most important memories they have. So remember, you don't have to be a professional to capture a memory. Take the picture. I'm Joshua Lynn of Artistic Taxidermy. Like us on Facebook at Artistic Taxidermy in Detroit Lakes.
Good advice, Josh. We agree completely when it comes to taking the picture. So with that, we'll jump right into our conversation last week with Erik Osberg. Here you go.
Like I have so this, I think we could talk about this for a long time.
Sure. What were you gonna say?
So in the front of my boat, there's a little platform, right? And Willie, that's his spot. He stands on that, it's the very bow of the boat, right? There's a little, I don't even know what to call it. Little platform. There's the deck, and then at the very top,
Yeah.
where you put the
perch.
The perch, right? And Willie stands up there, right? I have a tiller, so I'm in the back.
Yep.
He's in the front, and he stands up there. And I know he could fall in, right? Like, I know that's a possibility. I'm not stupid. But he hasn't yet.
Right.
And rather than me yell at him the whole time, don't stand up there, don't stand up there, don't stand, right? Like,
right.
That would suck.
Yeah.
For both of us. So I let him stand up there.
Right. He's got a life jacket.
He's got a life jacket on, and if he falls in, he falls in. The kid's a fish, right? He can,
right.
It's, if it's wavy, if it's dangerous, if it's dark. I mean, there's certain times where I'm like, dude, no, you can't, right?
Yep.
But then I'll bring other adults in the boat with me while he's doing that, and they freak out the whole time.
Yep.
Don't do it. Well, stop. What? I'm like, dude, just shut up. Watch the boy for 5 minutes, and you will see he has this under control.
Yep.
He looks like a surfer, right? You know how a surfer would, when the wave, he's not dumb.
No better than what we would be doing, because we probably fall off.
Yeah,
you could fall off.
Yeah, right. And
you've fallen in the water before.
I've fallen. Yeah, right. And which lure to use, right? Let them try stupid lures. The most ridiculous thing whatever they find, as inappropriate as it may be, let them at least try it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Let them tie it on, or tie it on for them and say, "Here you go." And if you want, you could say, "Tell you what, I'll give you 15 minutes with that."
Yep.
And if you don't have any fish, may I suggest another?
You really have to concentrate too, because I noticed, like with Carter, like I have the urgency to tell him, don't stop.
Right. Right.
But you have to mentally tell yourself, shut up.
Right. Just let them be.
Right.
Let them figure it out.
Let them fail.
Let them fail. Right. Like Are you recording?
Did you like how I slid that in there?
Are you recording?
Yep.
Oh, so why?
All right, so this is a surprise podcast. Erik Osberg's in my office right now. He came to say hi. He had to drop his 4-wheeler off in Onamia. So we're just chatting. We're having a surprise podcast. But we wanted to chat about getting kids into the outdoors and going out hunting and fishing. But before we get into that, we're going to talk to Erik just a little about his background. You like how I worked that in there?
Yeah, right.
Why don't you introduce yourself, Erik?
I'm Erik Osberg, and I'm with The Outdoor Report.
He created the Outdoor Report.
I created
for those that don't know.
Thanks for having me. By the way, love the podcast. Like this, just so everybody knows, Wes has been talking about a podcast for how many years?
Probably 2 or 3.
2 or 3. We gotta do a podcast. We gotta do a podcast. I'm like, yeah, it's great, but I don't know how to do a podcast. So you figure it out, and so congratulations on getting a podcast.
I haven't figured it out.
Well, you're doing it.
We're just doing something.
We're just doing it right. There's nobody listening, but who cares, right? It makes us feel better. No, so thanks, dude. The last one with Clujow, that was awesome. I mean, I've listened to them all. I'm not saying the other ones weren't as good, but
it's not Clujow.
Right.
Clagio.
Right. And what was the Quebec what was the?
I don't know. He threw.
It was like Clouseau.
That's what goofed me up because he threw him out so fast.
I want to start calling him Clouseau. I want to go old school Quebec, and I'm gonna start calling him Clouseau. But it was something a little different than that. Anyways,
before we talk about the kids, let's chat. How did the Outdoor Report come about?
So when I went to college, I wanted to be a play-by-play sports guy.
What did you go to college for?
To be a to get a degree.
Was it in? I
have a major in communications.
Okay.
But in all fairness, it's communication theory. I have a hoity-toity liberal arts degree from Hamlin, and it's like I had classes like Western rhetorical theory. Right? Like, I don't even know what that means. One of my professors said, okay, for your final, this was in a completely different class. For your final, I want you to write the antithesis of what this class would be. And I raised my hand. I was like, what's antithesis mean? This is before Google, right? Nobody.
The face plant to the face.
I'm like, what's antithesis? He's like, well, break it down. What is the thesis? Okay, thesis. What is anti? Okay, so how would you teach this class backwards? The complete opposite of this class. That was the final.
Yeah.
So I came out of college. I didn't know anything about anything other than, theory, right? Mm-hmm. No real I had a little bit of hands-on stuff, but nothing to really write home about. But I got. Do you want the whole story?
Yeah.
You want the whole story?
Yep.
So, I got
my 4-wheeler's gonna be done in an hour.
How much time do you got? So I got out of college, graduated from Hamlin. I didn't know how to do what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a sports guy. I wanted to be a sports anchor, right? So I called Jeff Passolt from Channel 11, from Fox 9. Like, I just called him, right? Like, I called Fox 9. I said, I want to speak. Is Jeff Passolt around? I don't know if it was 1 or 2 phone calls, but eventually I got to him, right? And I knew he had gone to St. Cloud State, so I knew he had to be a pretty decent guy, right? Like, you can't be a complete jerk and graduate from St. Cloud State. Yeah. So I explained the situation. I want to do what you do, but I don't know how to do it. He's like, did you do an internship? I said, yeah, it was at K-Fan, and it was in the promotions department. Like, I hung banners and stuff at live broadcasts. I didn't really learn anything.
Yeah.
No offense. I mean, it was awesome. I mean, it was a great experience, but I didn't learn how to...
The skills
necessary, right? And he said, well, let me talk with Jeff Grayson. Jeff Grayson is now, he works for Fox Sports Wisconsin with the Brewers, okay? So Jeff Grayson was the sports director. We couldn't really do an internship because I was graduated, but they let me volunteer for, so I think it was like 16 hours a week, right? Like straight up volunteer. So Wednesday nights and Sundays, I would go to Fox 9 and sit in the sports department. I would log tape. I would try to answer the phone, keep scores, put the ticker that goes across the bottom. Jeff.
Was at Fox 9.
It was at Fox 9, yeah, in Eden Prairie. And I did that for like 6 months, and what I got out of the deal.
Real quick, did you ever get the typing wrong on the ticker?
I didn't.
No.
I didn't. I made a lot of mistakes, but those weren't them. I got to interview Kevin Garnett, right? I got to do a lot of cool stuff, and I got out of there with a demo tape. To get a TV job, you got to have a demo tape, right? And you need an anchor read, and you need a story. And so they let me read my anchor read on their set, and it was brutal, dude. I'm so glad YouTube didn't exist back then, because it terrible, just viciously bad. But it got me a job in Rapid City, South Dakota, at KNBN News Center 1. And so I got a job, right? So I got a weekend sports guy in Rapid City, South Dakota. I made a lot of mistakes live on air in Rapid City, South Dakota.
You got one in particular?
I got a few. There's a town called Spearfish,
yep,
South Dakota. Live on air, I called it Spearshit, South Dakota. I have no idea why, right? Like, why would I even say that? And because you're nervous, right? You're 20. I don't know how old I wasn't. 21. It took me a little longer to get out of college than most, but I was 25 years old, the little red lights on, and you're frazzled, and I said spear shit.
How'd you recover?
I didn't. I just kept going. I don't want to acknowledge that.
That just happened.
Yeah, right. But here's one thing I will. And it was a good job, right? Like the first day they said, "Here's a camera, go figure it out," right? And I didn't know how to run the camera. But here's your white balance button, and here's your zoom button, and here's your focus button. And it's just, trial by fire, right?
Yep.
You go out and you shoot. Well, you got 4 football games you got to shoot, and you got to get back in time, and you got to edit it, and you got to write it, and you got to read it live on the air.
You're hustling.
You're hustling, right? So you get in, you get what you need, and you get out, which is kind of my approach to this day. But yeah, so and while I was and I'm getting to this is the long story, so I'll get to how did the outdoor report start?
I know, yeah.
So
I understand, Eric.
So my bit or my beat was the outdoors, right? Like I was in South Dakota, so I got to go ice diving up in the Black Hills, right? I got I went deer hunting up in the Black Hills. We went pheasant hunting. Trout fish, so I was covering the outdoors as a news guy, right? And I had always thought, gosh, it'd be nice if there was a TV show. And again, this is early 2000s, right? 2000, this is 15 years ago. Gosh, it'd be nice if there was a TV show, an outdoor show that was up to date and fresh and good information, kind of like news, but without an angle, right?
Yeah.
And a little less product-y, to be honest. And so eventually I left South Dakota. I wasn't making enough money. I came back home, worked construction, and then another job opened up at a local TV station in St. Cloud. I went there, and then another job opened up in Duluth, and I was a sports guy up there. And again, so I still kind of had this thing like, gosh, I wish there was a platform where it was kind of newsy, right? And we could have opposite points of view, right? Where one guy could be a clam guy and one guy could be an ice force guy, and not that they would clash, but the consumer could get information from both. Right? Like here's what makes otter stuff good, and here's what makes clam stuff good, and here's what makes this thing good, and here's what makes and allow for that open dialogue about so that the honesty so the consumer or the user didn't feel like, oh, well, they're just saying this because they're sponsored by them, right again, almost like news. So after I left TV, went into finance, and eventually I couldn't take it anymore, so I started a website, theoutdoorreport.com, which by the way hasn't been updated in like 4 months. So don't go there. but and then Facebook came along, right? And so I just started to dabble on the side, and I was a stockbroker,
How'd you come up with the name?
The Outdoor Report.
Was there anything specific other than you like the outdoors and it was news?
Well, I mean, with my new, it's the Outdoor Report, right?
Yep.
Like here's your report from the outdoors. Yep. And I didn't want it to be just fishing. I didn't want it to be just hunting. And if you look at the logo, right, the O has the scope sights and the R is
best logo ever.
It doesn't suck.
I like it.
It's been our logo for a long time, so it's got some staying power. I don't know, but so I started to dabble and then I had learned how to film and edit in a fairly quick manner. Right? In news, right? You went out and you shot a football game and, dude, you're going live in like 17 minutes.
Yep. That
little red light's going to come on whether you're ready or not. So you better get this freaking thing done.
Yep.
Or you're going to have black air, right? And then what do? So I call it MASH surgery production, right? You're on the front lines. Done is better than perfect. Get it done, get it out there, and move on to the next thing.
Right.
And so, I had left. I was with Edward Jones for 6 years, almost 7, and then was at a bank, and I did what I shouldn't have done. Don't do this, but I took money out of my 401k, right? And as a financial advisor, like this is the worst thing you can do in the world, right? And I bought equipment, and then I think Chip Lear was probably my first check writing client.
Okay.
I went and shot some stuff because I got to meet Chip through my news days. I filmed a story with Chip and Tommy Scarless back when the PWT was up on Lake of the Woods. That's a whole nother story in of itself. Sure. I won't bore you with it. But and so so I filmed something for Chip and he wrote me a check and it didn't suck. And so then somebody eventually somebody says, well, who did that for you? Well, this Erik guy. Well, can you do that for me? Well, I don't know. Ask him. Right? And so 1 became 2, 2 became 4, 4 became 8, 8 became 16. So eventually you've got semi-satisfied clients that want you to shoot video, and then you're trying to work your day job and you're trying to balance all that stuff, right?
No, it's not like we ever talked about it.
and so eventually at the I don't know if you'd call it disapproval of my wife, but eventually I said, honey, I'm just going to go for it. I'm going to quit the whole fine. I'd left the bank and I was now an insurance agent and I hated that, right? Like I was a better financial advisor than I was an investment or than I was an insurance guy. And I said, honey, we're going to go for it. We ain't got a pot to piss in or a window to throw it out and there ain't no plan B. We're going to go for it. And so I quit and I did the video production full time, and I actually got a gig producing Fish in the Midwest with Bob Jensen.
I just saw their show on the other day.
Yeah.
Yep.
Good show. Great guys.
Yep.
Good. Nothing bad to say about those guys at all. They gave me my first real, I mean, it was a big project. 13 episodes. And we delivered to like 10 different stations around the Midwest. Fox Sports North. I can't even name the other one. Like there was one station up in the UP. I had to mail them the DVD.
Yep.
Right? Like on Monday morning. Anyways, it was.
That's how you got to do Danny Thompson, right? Wasn't that because you guys were doing the commercials for Cabela's?
I thought I met Danny before
that.
I can't remember how I met Danny Thompson.
I remember you saying the Cabela's.
It was a coincidence. I'm pretty sure I knew Danny before that.
Okay.
But so I did that show for a while, and then that stopped, and then I started driving truck. Well, actually, I started working construction again, just because I had focused so much on that one project, I had nothing in the pipeline, right?
Yep.
There was nobody in the funnel.
Yep.
And so I worked construction for Mark Stone. Up in Wadena, and I remembered quickly, that's not my strength. But
we had some good chats at midnight when you were driving truck.
Then I got hooked up with Hunky's Transfer. They were kind enough to let me
You're
drive.
A good truck driver.
I was a great truck. The overnights were tough, but then because of the connection that I had made with Fox Sports North, I contact at Fox Sports North.
The connection that was through Fishing in the Midwest?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. And I just kept dripping on them, right? Hey, I got an idea for a show. I got an idea for a show. I got an idea for a show. Then finally one day they called and said, 8:30 Saturday morning, do you want it? And I was like, I think so. Let me ask my wife. And when I told my wife, her first initial reaction, like in her eye, was joy, right?
Yep.
Like you can tell, right, when somebody's first pure in, you know. So
Yep.
when I told her, and I said, honey, this was after I had just driven truck all night long, right?
Yep.
And we're not in a great place financially, right?
Yep.
And I said, I have an opportunity, right? And I'm not saying we have to do this. It's just Fox Sports North has said, if I want my own show, we can do it. And her eyes lit. Oh, that's great! Congratulations. Took her about 15 minutes to think it through, like the consequences of what we were about to do. And then she was like, so how's this gonna work? I was like, don't worry, honey, we're going.
Jenna, it's all good.
It's all good. You said it's good. We're going. It's too late now. And so in the meantime, we had been building the online platforms, mostly Facebook, because for whatever reason, that's where we seem to connect with people. And then we did the TV show, and
TV show was a blast. I know for me, it was more of a blast than for you.
It was. The TV, it didn't suck, right? The show didn't suck. And thank God for Aaron Lee Simmons, man. Without Aaron Lee, there's no way. We wouldn't have made air without Aaron Lee Simmons.
I would have tried to help.
Right.
But it wouldn't have worked.
It wouldn't have worked. No, Aaron Lee, I hired Aaron Lee. I told Aaron Lee right away I met him through Ivan Lawrence of Danlore.
Yeah.
Aaron Lee had done
That's right.
a pro bono video for Ivan, and I called up Ivan. I'm like, Ivan, you hired somebody to shoot a video other than me? Come on, man. He's like, no, it was my cousin or something, and he did it for college. I was like, oh, is he good? He's like, I don't know. I'm like, does he want to work? I don't know. So I hired Aaron, and I'll never forget. I went to Fox Sports. When I had done the Fishing Midwest, we were putting the shows on tape, literal beta tape, right? That's how we delivered it. And by the time we got our own show, it was all digital, right?
Yep.
Is it still recording?
Still recording. That's good.
Is it 11:32?
Yep.
Or is it okay? So we needed the technology to load this video up through space to Fox Sports North, right? And I didn't have the technology, and I didn't know how to do it.
Yep.
And neither did Aaron. But thank God he's a millennial, and he'll Google things till he dies, right?
Yep.
And he figured it out.
That's awesome.
And so, yeah, the show was fun. It was a lot of work, but it was fun.
I think you should do it again.
Yeah, right. I'm not, never say never, but it would take a very special circumstance for me to ever be in that position again.
I think we both agreed, though, looking back at it, of where TV may be going and what the value you can get out of social media. Yeah,
I don't think TV is dead, right? But it's changing.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was a business decision is what it was, right? And no offense to anybody that has television or does television, that's awesome, right? I get it. But the consumer is changing the way that they consume information.
Right.
And adapt or die, right? So, yeah, to your point, we thought, well, we could probably do the same thing, just in smaller doses and not quite as pretty. And
not 18 hours a day?
Oh, and not 18 hours a day.
I'm quite sure that between Eric and Aaron, you guys put in 18-hour days.
There were 24-hour days.
Yeah.
There were days where we had shifts worked out, right? Because it was just the two of us.
Right.
Right? There was nobody. I mean, you, right? You were helping.
I'm trying to film here and there.
Yeah, I mean, but without you, it wouldn't have worked either. But yeah, I would come in first, right? And then Aaron would get there mid-morning-ish. And then I would leave 5-ish, 6-ish, whatever. And then he'd stay. And then I'd go home sometimes. And I'd try to be with the family. And then I'd go back, right?
Yep.
And then he'd go home. And I'd stay there till 2, 3, 4 in the morning. You know, I'd make it as far as I could. And then I'd come back again, you know, and yeah.
Yep.
We both slept in the office once.
Yep, I remember.
He was sicker than a dog. We beat him up bad. He was, and I'm like, dude, just go lay down and go to sleep. Like, you've been doing this for, 2 months, and yeah. And then that one time I slept in the office. You and I were going to film goose hunting in September with Tommy Jorgensen.
Oh yeah,
that was the first time I met Tommy.
Yep.
So I had to be at Long Prairie at 6 in the morning,
yep.
and I was already in the office till 3 in the morning. I was like, by the time I get home and get into bed, it'll be 4. So why don't I just lay down here?
Yep.
And that's how we rolled.
What I like is what you've said before. You can look back and say, because it was your dream.
That was my yep.
You did your dream.
Check that off the list. Right.
Done it.
From the time I was 10 years old, I wanted my own fishing show, and we did it our way, right? Like I didn't, and that's probably why it's not still going, is because I refused to adapt.
Yeah.
Right. Like I had delusions of whatever, and yeah, but
I don't think it was delusion. I think it was morals.
Well, no.
Well, no, but that's what attracted me to even initially reaching out to you, was just the direction that you were going and how you portrayed yourself.
Wow.
And you weren't the big shot, hot shot, doing stuff. It was, but that's I think the concept of it is right. The market doesn't want it.
Right.
Where it's not as much product. You didn't want a product. You didn't have the you could have done some different things, but you didn't, and that's admirable.
Well, no, plus it's bad business. You know what I mean? I'm morals are great, but eventually you got to pay the bills, and so that's
why we're sitting here with full-time jobs.
Right. So why we're recording this on a cell phone. No, I didn't. I wanted it to do my way,
yep.
And we did it my way, and it didn't. I don't think it sucked.
No,
right?
It was great.
I don't think it was the best show on television by any stretch of the imagination, but we didn't miss an air, right? And for two guys in the donut shop in Wadena, Minnesota, to not miss an air, 12 and a half original episodes, I'll call it, because the 13th we kind of mailed it in on that last one.
Yeah.
But,
done better, perfect. You did it.
Well, by now Aaron was back in college. I did the last month solo.
Yep.
So yeah, no, it was cool, and I really don't. That itch has been scratched, right?
Yep.
Like, yeah, we did it, and we're done, and I.
What's your focus now for the brand?
Yeah, it's a good question.
As we just trying to think about this,
that's what we're trying to figure out. I think the brand has some. Well, it's still here, right?
Yeah.
And our audience still seems to grow, and they still seem to be engaged, and until that starts going the other way, we'll probably keep going. I want, and I this just came to me the other day after listening to one of your podcasts. I would like for us to be the Thinking Man's show.
Glad you found it.
It's we get so caught up in a lot of peripheral stuff, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff out there, and there's a lot of icky stuff out there. Like there's a lot of bad news in the world, and there's a lot of bad news in the outdoor world. And it's not that I'm ignoring that, It's just there's enough places where you can get your fill of that.
Right.
I kind of want to just be a place where
everyone knows your name.
Everyone knows your name. and people don't feel like they're gonna get ripped apart for every little thing that they do that might be a little bit different than someone else, right?
Mm-hmm.
To each their own. And here's an idea, and here's a tip, or here's a story, right? Smiles and cries, man. It's all about smiles and cries, and if we can, if we can still entertain and inform and educate and or inspire, we're gonna stick around. That's our goal. It still is. It's just we don't do it with a TV show anymore.
Well, appreciate you letting me stick around.
Well, that's my phone.
4-wheeler's done.
Living a dream.
We're living a dream. So anyways, we got the phone calls that got us distracted a little bit, but we were just ending. I think I was thanking you for letting me be part of the ride. I love your vision. I love who you are and your family. We've gotten to know each other, and it's been fun. And before we were one of the points when Erik popped in here, I said, well, let's do a podcast, and we were going to talk about getting kids into the outdoors. And you've done an awesome job with Willie.
Right. I've failed miserably with my 2 daughters, though, so let's just point that out.
Betty Wilkins would be glad for me to ask why, or what is it, what the interest isn't there, or
I have not been able to create an enjoyable experience for them, whether it be hunting or fishing. There is an old saying that, and this is going to sound sexist, but fishermen are born, not made, right?
Okay.
So you can put a cat in the oven, that don't make it a biscuit, right? like you can take somebody who just they don't have it in them, right? Like they're not a hunter, or they're not
passion. That's not the passion.
It's not their thing, right? Right. So I've tried. I tried with the first girl came along, and I tried to incorporate. She went in a boat at an early age, and we did all that stuff.
Was it too early? Maybe.
No, there was one. I guess a little scary experience that was with the whole family, but I think their interests lie elsewhere, and I haven't been able to. Every time I go out, I ask them, "You want to go fishing?" No. You want to go fishing? No. It's plus one of them's a teenager now, right? And she's gone, right? I mean, she's only 13, but she's already, she's already
doing her thing,
and so, but no. So I've been very lucky to have a son like Willie who sometimes leads the charge rather than he reminds me that it's time to go fishing. So
right. If people don't know who Walleye Willie is, it's Erik's son, and I've witnessed Willie fishing, and it's there. It's in him. Full-fledged heart. He loves to fish.
We went out Sunday. So the ice was good, and then it got bad, right?
Yep.
And so we went out on Sunday. I was like, I got to get out of the house. Willie needs to get out of the house. We got to get out of the house. So we were gonna go cast in some river mouths, right?
Yep.
So I knew there was no ice and there was open water, and at least we could cast. We were out there on Sunday for 4 hours without a single bite. Now, if you asked Willie, he's pretty sure he got bit a couple of times, and he might even have lost a fish, right? He had it on for a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily, I don't believe him.
It was there.
I had him, Dad. He was at 20 seconds, but for 4 hours, we were outside, right? He was playing with the minnows. He was building, by the end, he had built a little trap in the river with rocks, and he was taking minnows, not illegally, but he was playing with minnows in the, you know what I mean? Right? Like, he didn't have an iPad in his hand. He didn't have an iPod in his hand. There was fresh air. It was outside. We didn't catch a single fish. And it was 5 hours on a Sunday afternoon.
Yep.
And he was disappointed we didn't catch any fish, but it's not going to deter him from going again.
He's just glad to get out.
No.
Yeah. With getting Willie out, and you see other folks try to get the kids out, and I secretly recorded part of this before we even started. What do you have any advice on?
I have all sorts of advice. And I don't know how much of this will repeat from the beginning, but when I've been in the boat with other parents It's predominantly been fathers and their sons, and I apologize for that. I'll try to do a better job, Betty. But dads can be really tough on their kids in the boat, right? Like, don't do that. Stop doing that. Don't touch that. And then moms can be tough on them too, right? Like, that's one of the challenges when it's me and my wife and Willie, it's tough because she's not used to watching him play with hooks and sharp things and pliers and standing on the front of the boat. And you know, so that I'm not saying you there's no rules and you let them run the day, but you've got to let them try things. You've got to let them fail. You've got to, when it comes to lures, if they have a crazy idea for a lure, let them try it, right? Like, because and I don't know where you pushed record earlier, but what I see happening is dads, like Willie and I will be in the boat with another dad and their kid, right? And the other dad's pretty hard on that kid. Like, stop, don't, no, set the hook, don't set the hook, reel, stop, start, right? They're barking orders at them for however long it is. And the next time they go to ask their kid, do you want to go fishing? They're like, hell no. No, that's not fun, right? Having you yell at me for 3 hours isn't fun, right? Yep. So if you have to turn, don't turn a blind eye, but if you just try not to pay attention to their, I mean, and again, some kids some kids are better at baseball than other kids, and some kids are better at football or math or whatever it is, right? We've all got our strengths. So just let them fail. Let them don't let them injure themselves, but let them get a finger or let them get a hook stuck in their finger. Let them fall. And I was telling you about this earlier. So on the front of my boat, the bow of my boat, above the deck, it's a tiller. There's a little perch up there where, a little stand, where you would mount a trolling motor or put the light in there, right? And Willie will stand up there. And whoever gets in my boat is like, Willie, get on, stop, no, right. I'm like, dude, he knows what he's doing. He's fine. Well, he's going to fall in. Fine. Willie, what do you do when you fall in? Swim, right? Like, we've talked about this, right? If he's down by the dock, right?
Yep.
I'm like, Willie, if you fall in, what should you do? Stand up. Right. That's what you do, right? Like, you prepare, let them know what bad may come, and then let them experience that, and then maybe he'll decide on his own, yeah, I probably shouldn't stand up there,
Yep.
And that's way better than me yelling at him 5 times.
Yep. For getting kids into the outdoors more, did you get involved young?
Yeah. My dad, bless his heart, who didn't know how to fish, right, and still doesn't. It's easy. And there's no way Dad will hear this, but anybody who, and there's a few other people probably will, but it's easier to take Willie fishing than it is for me to take my dad fishing, right? Like Willie at 8 years old is helping my dad, and I love him, bless his heart, right? And so when I was a kid, he didn't know how to fish, so he asked a guy, right? Like, my dad had bought a cabin on a lake, and so he figured fishing was the natural thing to do.
Yep.
And so he asked a buddy, how do you fish? And his buddy said, you take a number 5 hook, a split shot sinker, and a frog, right? Like a real live frog.
Yep.
And you throw it out there, and right at the edge of the lily pads, and you let it sink. And then bass hit it. And then again, this is what the guy told him. Then you got to count to 10 before you set the hook. And so my dad says and my dad hated taking me fishing because I was a jerk, right? I was not an easy kid at all. And
Eric, get down from there.
Yeah, right. There was probably a lot of that. But he said whenever I would get bit, he'd say you got to count to 10, and I'd go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and then I'd set the hook. Yep. And I remember as a kid getting up early in the morning. I remember going out and catching frogs. Yep. Right, we'd take a minnow bucket and we'd go out in the marsh and you'd grab those little frogs and it sounded like popcorn in your minnow bucket as you walk down to the boat.
Yep. I
always felt a little bad for the frogs, right? Like they'd be holding on to the hook with their hands, making noises. I'm like, oh, geez, yeah. You had to, and eventually they got full of air, so you had to like squeeze them so they'd sink. But that, if you're gonna make an omelet, you gotta break a few eggs.
Right.
So my advice is, when you take a kid into the outdoors, right?
Yep.
Just let them be for a little bit. Let them figure some things out on their own. Let them fail. Let them try. If they fall in the boat or in the water, as long as they're wearing a life jacket, I mean, things it'll be fine.
I think for younger kids, you really have to set it up so the first couple experiences are perfect. Like, to a T almost. Because timing, I think, is everything. Because, like, Grace, I've been fortunate, too, with Carter. He's gung-ho and everything. Grace is completely different. She's got interest now because of Carter.
Right.
And that's where, he's kind of leading her a little bit down that path, as well as myself. But Jess and Grace, you can tell the passion that there. I'm just working on getting Jess into that. But with Grace, at her age, I could take Carter out in the woods, and he would understand and follow and whisper. And I took Grace out recently, and the concepts, like, be quiet? What? Yeah. I gotta whisper. Oh, okay. Hey, Dad! So, and if it's too cold,
right,
that's not fun. So I think it's, especially at the early stages, properly planning it out so that it's going to end good. To at least hopefully set them up long term.
Right, and no, I agree 100%. And kudos to you for what you've done with Carter and what you're trying to do with Grace. I mean, I would feelings mutual, right? Like I see what you and Carter got going. I'm like, wow, that's really cool. I mean, Carter is an outdoorsman, right? Yeah. It's funny because when Carter and Willie get together, Carter's the hunter and Willie's the we are our father's sons. No, the other thing is short and sweet, and I guess when back to the Outdoor Report as a brand, I'm all for big, huge adventures, right? I love going away for 3-4 days.
Yep.
But I got a lot of things going on in my life. I call them, micro moments, right? The thing that Willie and I did on Sunday didn't cost us hardly any money, right?
Yep.
We did it 26 miles from my house, right? It wasn't my backyard, but we hopped in the truck, went and got some minnows, drove to the river, and came home, right? And I was in a position where if it was going horribly wrong, I could pull the pin. And so when if you have a kid and you're trying to get them into the outdoors, don't take them on a 3-day fishing trip to, whoever, right? Where they're maybe not going to catch walleyes all weekend.
Right.
Take them to a dock, right?
Yep.
Shore, a river. Put a really tiny little hook with a little piece of worm on there and just drop it in the water. It could start there, right?
Yep.
And do that, and then you'll know pretty quick whether they're into it or not. And it could take an hour, or 30 minutes, and then
kind of gauge it and see.
And that's so let them learn, let them fail. Like you said, set them up for success, but don't be afraid to pull the pin. Don't force it. If it ain't happening, get out of there.
And does Willie have a point that he hits that it's done? We gotta go home.
Well, and he'll say it's time to pull the pin. Those are the exact words he'll use. It all depends on the fish, right? Yeah. Like if you're into fish all day, right? Like and he'll get zoned in and he just you lose all track of time. But I can tell, when he starts to get a little bit less focused and a little bit more whiny and a little bit distracted, I can tell he's struggling. And I try not to hand him my phone and say, here, watch a video. Right. That's my ace in the hole, right?
Right.
Like if I need to buy some time, I will hand him the phone and say, you want to watch a video? I try to incorporate music, right?
Oh, yep.
Right? Like, you know what might help is if we listened to the Gummy Bear song.
Yeah.
Right? Oh, I'm a gummy bear. And, so then pretty soon we're both singing the Gummy Bear song and we're a little distracted, and then maybe the fish, or whatever, Willie Nelson,
Right. That's a good point, because in the tree stand too, Carter will ask for the phone, and it's like, no, give it a half hour. Experience just nothing
Right.
for a little bit. And worst case, last 10 minutes. Why not? Yeah, you can play on it just to get us to that end point.
And that's another thing is if I sense that he's struggling, and I will say it's been a while since he's asked for the phone, right?
Yep.
Which is good, right? Like he can figure there's other things to do in the boat if you let them, right? He can play with the jigs, he can play with the Rapalas, he can play, and everybody freaks out. Oh no, he's gonna. Yeah, he might get a Rapala in his hook, and yes, he has had a. Now, full disclosure, Willie has been in surgery to get a hook removed from his foot. So I'm do as I say, not as I do, type of thing. So
good advice, Eric.
Yeah, but it wasn't what it was. It was at home. It was stuck in the carpet. It was a whole different scenario. It wasn't fishing, and believe me, he pushes the envelope, and that's a lot. It was my fault, but the. When he's losing his focus, or when I can sense that, give him a countdown, right?
Right.
So, 15 more minutes.
Yep.
Set a goal, right? Like it's 3:40 it's 3:40 on your clock, right? What do you think, Willie? Again, you're trying to gauge your kid when you want to pull a pin. 4:15.
Yep.
4:30. You know what I mean? Let them decide.
Yep.
That's the other thing. I let Willie tell us where to fish, right? Now, I don't always love his spots, and he doesn't always get his way. But if he's got an idea, we'll explore it, right?
Right.
Willie likes to fish shallow because he likes to see the fish, right?
Sight fishing.
Sight fishing, weeds. It's visual. He's into it just by being there, right? Looking for them.
Yep.
And so every time we get to the landing, he's like, we should probably go over there, right? I'm like, sure.
We should go.
Well, I mean, yeah, I don't want to, but I'll
you go with it.
I say, tell you what, we'll go check it out. We'll
Yep.
try it out, right? And after we've established that there's no signs of life in 3 feet of water, we can move on.
And you don't rub it in.
And I don't rub it in. And that way he got his way a little bit. I got my way too. And my goal is eventually he'll know, right, where to take me. That's what
I see it. You're setting up
see
the
what
end game
I'm
here.
setting up the end game here,
Yeah.
right? When I'm my dad's age, I'll hop in the boat and I'll just be like, wherever, son.
Yep.
Take me there.
I am looking forward to that, actually. Carter get to the point where it's like, you go set the stands or the set.
Right.
And tell me where my spot is.
Right, yeah. I did it for you for how many, 18 years. Might as well it's my turn, so.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I think it's a good chat. The only other thing that I was going to say is just with us talking, and this is going to be, going back to Betty Wilkins, a credit to her. I was picking her brain because Betty's huge about getting ladies into the outdoors.
Yep.
Well, just people in general,
right. But she would like to see more ladies.
She would like to see more ladies, and she can see the disconnects in the lack in some of the mainstream media to help promote that. And I asked her, even with Jess and Grace, and she's like, and I was asking about our brand. Like, okay,
right.
what do we need to do to try to help bridge that gap? And she said, focus on family. So if you can, you and Eric, if you can focus on family, that'll eventually help spiderweb its way out.
Right.
Which I think is true. I mean, with you and Willie, and I know you're always trying to get the girls out, and I'm always trying to think of different ways to, but I think if you keep that centered as focus on family, that you'll get more for what you're looking for. Yeah,
and I think, I mean, back to women in the outdoors, I mean, there's a right way and a wrong way to do it, in my humble opinion. And I don't want to get much deeper than that, but the way that ladies have been portrayed in the outdoors,
yep,
isn't necessarily our cup of tea, right?
Yep.
And I don't know how to expand on that without.
What we need to do is we'll get Betty.
Yeah, I would love to.
Together.
I have to
help lead us down the right path.
I would love to talk with Betty. Her whole perception versus reality thing
Yep.
is money, man. That's and the thing that I love about that applies to everybody.
Yeah.
Whether you're a hunter or a fisherman or an anti-hunter or or a politics, you're on the right, you're on the left. If we can take a moment and just recognize the fact that we're looking at whatever situation it may be through our lens, and our lens has a certain filter on it, and we are seeing things differently than somebody else who's looking through. And that doesn't mean you have to agree. Just have to acknowledge the fact that your reality is based largely on your perception of what is true and what is not true. Yep. So back to our roots. And I know media and journalism doesn't have a good brand right now, but I believe that journalism is a seeking truth, right?
Yep.
Without a bias, without an opinion. I mean, there's a lot of opinions being thrown around right now, right?
Just a few.
A lot of opinions out there.
Yep.
I think that there's a scarcity on good, honest dialogue and conversations and open on both sides,
without
right?
Yelling.
And as I raise my
I get it.
He's calm up. But just like, where have all the grown-ups gone, right? Right? Like we sit and we yell and we insult each other on both, and I'm not. This is right down the middle, man. So back to what is the Outdoor Report and who are we? We're grown-ups, and we treat other people like grown-ups, and we don't insult people. If you want that, we don't got it.
And if we accidentally do, we're very sorry.
We didn't mean to. It wasn't intentional. We'll insult ourselves, right?
Yeah,
we can poke fun at ourselves. And, are we taking life too seriously? I don't think so. We still have fun. We just don't think we need to rip on everybody for how they do things.
Yep.
Watch your own bobber.
Watch your own bobber. That's what we're going to end on today. So that is our impromptu, just walk in the door podcast. Eric didn't know we were recording it right off the bat, so we surprised one on him. So that's all we got. That's Erik Osberg. That's the Outdoor Report. Kind of a little brief history of it. Some tidbits if you got some kids or you're looking to try to get kids in the outdoors. And I think that's a wrap, Eric.
That's a wrap.
Thank you for everything.
No.
Appreciate it.
My pleasure.
It's been good getting to know you the last couple of years.
You're a good kid, Wes. Your heart's in the right place. You're doing good things, and I like your style.
You're a great old man.
Shut up, old man.